All right, we'll say good morning. Agmar Chestima Tova. Let us begin. Begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's shir. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Tishrei. Thank you so much. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. I will say to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Tishrei, Dr. Linda Weinberg, Sarah and Ricky Gratz, Julia, Rena, and even memory of their husband, father, and Zayda, Dr. Paul Weinberg, Paris Moshe Ben Avraham on the occasion of his second yahrzeit. To thank Ayal and Sara Steinberg for dedicating the shurim this month, Refuah Sheleima for shulamis bas susha. Adam and Yudit Ben Zev for dedicating the shurim this month, and the zechus of all of our tefillos being miskabel. Our week of learning sponsors: Hilary, Jacobson, Kent, Akiva, Kent, in memory of Mordechai, Menashe, Ben Shmiryahu, Nathan and Beth Adler in memory of Ben Adler, Chaver Baruch, Mordechai Ben Rena, Nasan, Zichron Levracha, and Saeed and Sima Haken in the zechus of Refuah Sheleima for their granddaughter Talia Miriam Bas Orli Yehudis. You hope then on the merit of our Talmud Torah. All of the Neshama Slav and Aliyah, the families in Nechama, and all those who require a refuah should have one together with Kol Cholei Yisrael. I will say we have a lot to do today. Incredible daf ahead of us. Today's daf is Pei Dalit, 84. We are picking up on, today's daf is Pei Hey, 85. We are picking up on Pei Dalit on the base, 84b, about 18 lines up from the bottom, right across from Tosus Vihu. So says the Gemara, Kreveit Rabbi Yochanan, Tafis Pardiasi. So remember again, we are dealing now in the interesting sugya regarding the machlokes Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon, namely, when a person dies, who has initial rights to his assets. So remember again, we had a machlokes in the Mishnah. We had Rabbi Tarfon who said that the weakest position creditor gets the property. So again, we had a machlokes in the Gemara exactly what that meant. Let's assume for a moment that what that means for now is ksuba, is a woman. We allow her to collect her ksuba first. Every other collection comes after that. Rabbi Akiva says, Ein meracham in badin, which I was thinking about, not the kind of phrase you want to read this time of year, right? Ein meracham in badin, there's no rachmanis when it comes to din, right? Din is din. So again, we don't paskin that way, hashkafa lemaisa. We'll see how we paskin halacha lemaisa, but at least again, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's always rachmanis badin. So Rabbi Akiva says, halacha lemaisa, everything goes to yarshim. Person dies, entire estate goes to yarshim. After that, we figure out who is in a position to collect what. So we'll say, these are some stories illustrating these halachas. So therefore, again, Krevi Rabbi Yochanan, Tafas Parad Yasmi. So relatives of Rabbi Yochanan, who had gone ahead and lent money to a person who had passed away, ultimately went ahead and seized a cow. Reuven dies, right? He has children, the children get the estate, they seize the cow. So Misimta, and he's doing it from Misimta. Remember again, Simta is like that alleyway or corner of the Rosh Hashanah where you don't have the same volume of pedestrian traffic. Also, so he came up Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Lahu, Shapir Tifastua. So Rabbi Yochanan said, Shkoyach, that what you did is permitted. Also, Rabbi Shimon Lakish, he came up for Reish Lakish, Amar Lahu, Zil Ahadru. Reish Lakish says, give it back. Because we pass, essentially Reish Lakish was saying we paskin like Rabbi Akiva, and therefore when a person passes away, the entire estate comes to the Yisomim. Once it comes to the Yisomim, then we can figure out, the estate can figure out how to settle all the various debts. So, Ahadr Asa, so the Gemara says, Zilu Ahadr Asa Rabbi Yochanan. The relatives then came back to Rabbi Yochanan. It's Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish went ahead and contradicted you. Rabbi Yochanan says, what do you want? Ma'asa Shekinegdi Chalak Alai. What can I do? Ultimately, again, those who are opposite me oppose me. Also remember again, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish were brothers-in-law. So, and again, remember, Reish Lakish married Rabbi Yochanan's sister. Famous mice in the Gemara. Reish Lakish was the bandit, married Rabbi Yochanan's sister. So Rabbi Yochanan said, no, what can I do? I'm outnumbered. So both say, so once again, this story seems to point us in the direction that in fact we paskin like Rabbi Akiva, namely halacha lemaisa. When a person dies, the entire estate goes to the Yisomim, and then from the Yisomim we figure out who gets paid in what order. Hahu Bikra Diyasmi, the Tafsi Turamine. So we'll say there was Bikra Diyasmi Rasha is we'll call it a shepherd, but it's a bit more sophisticated than a shepherd. Rashi calls him a Shomer Behemoseim. He's the guy responsible for the herdsman. Sounds more professional than a shepherd, right? He was the herdsman. So what happens? Reuven dies. One of Reuven's creditors comes along and seizes an ox, which is called an ox, right? An animal from the herdsman in satisfaction of a debt. So the Gemara says, Baal Chov, Amar Mechaim Tafis Nalei. So now listen to this. Now there's machlokes. The creditor said, I seized this animal while Reuven was alive. Now, boss, remember again, there's a fundamental distinction between seizure of property before Reuven dies and after he dies. So remember again, after he dies, that's what Rabbi Akiva says, no. No one could seize anything after Reuven dies because the entire estate of Reuven becomes the property of the Yisomim after death. Then, as a creditor, you have a right to take the estate to Beis Din and settle it that way, but no seizure of property after Reuven dies. However, when Reuven is alive, I will say there is a concept. If somebody owes you money, there is a concept of being able to seize property under certain circumstances. So watch this. The creditor now claims he seized the ox before Reuven died. No, before Reuven died. So the Gemara says, Ubikra Amar la'achar misa tafsei. On the other hand, the herdsman, the shepherd said, no, that's not true. Creditor, you seized the property after Reuven died. So what happened? So Rav Nachman says to the shepherd, tell me, do you have witnesses that the creditor seized the ox? Amrle lav. The herdsman said, I do not. Amrle migo di yochol lemeimar lakuach ubiyadi yochol nami lemeimar mechayim tafis nalei. Incredible. In that case, Rabbi Yochanan says, I'm sorry, the halacha is going to side with the creditor. Why? Rabbi say, what does he have? He has what we call a migo. Migo, Rabbi means what? What could, in other words, halacha l'maisa, the creditor could have easily said what? The creditor could have said, I purchased it. Right? Forget about that. I purchased this. Since he could have claimed I purchased it, and there would have been no way to undermine that claim, when he makes a claim that says, I seized it during the lifetime of Reuven, therefore he is believed. Also remember again, the concept of migo says that if you could have made a stronger claim, but instead you make an inferior claim, that by definition attests to the validity of your claim. So therefore, we're going to believe the creditor of Ayal and Sara says, 1 second, Hagodros ein lahen chazaka. But it's actually very interesting. Generally, we say that animals, Rashi says specifically, behemos dakos, small animals. So possession does not testify to ownership. In general, both say if you have something in your possession that are the possession is 9/10 of the law, right? If something in your possession, that generally bolsters your claim. So here the Gemara is saying is creditor has a couple of things going for him. Number one is he has the ox. Number two, he could have said he bought it. Instead, he's saying he seized it during the lifetime of the borrower. Gemara says, but 1 second. Possession by small animals doesn't make a difference. Why? Because since small animals wander around anyway, so possession is not really helpful. Doesn't attest to your doesn't bolster the validity of your claim of ownership. Shiny TORAH to miskabel. We'll say an ox is different because oxen, unlike sheep, which sometimes are a bit more, I guess, like free range, oxen are very often kept under the watchful eye of the herdsman shepherd. So therefore, again, possession of an ox will in fact go ahead and attest to the validity of the claim in some way. Good. So we'll say, once again, what's the takeaway from this story? Once again, all things seem to be pointing in the direction of paskening like Rabbi Akiva, that when a person dies, their estate goes to the Yisomim, and everything has to be settled from there. So we'll say the members of the house of the Nasi, went ahead and seized a maidservant. So again, they apparently had lent Reuven money. Reuven died. They seized a maidservant in a simta in satisfaction of their debt. Yasir Rabbi Avar, Rabbi Chanina Bar Papi, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka, Yasir Rabbi Abba Gabayu Amr Lehu Shapir Tafis Tu. So they said, great job. They said to the Nasi, ultimately, again, good job. You went ahead and it's all out, right? It's all out. It's all out. Right? So Lemaisa. So they went ahead and they said, good job that you went ahead and you seized it in satisfaction of the debt. Amar lahu Rabbi Ab Mishul de Benesiya Ninu Machnifas lahu. Because this is the Nasi, right? You're kissing up to them. In other words, you're saying a halacha that accords with them, that justifies their practice. V'hadun daini k'Rabbi Tarfon. V'hadre Reish Lakish of the Menayu. We just had a story before where Rabbi Nachman and his Beis Din paskin like Rabbi Tarfon, and Reish Lakish came along and reversed the ruling. Namely, that halacha l'maisa, after the death of Ruvain, no one has a right to seize anything from the estate. The estate becomes the possession of the Yisomim. You want to lodge a claim against the Yisomim, that's fine. Go to Beis Din, lodge a claim against the Yisomim. So Yemar Bar Chashu have a masik Bezuzi Ba'al Gavra. So listen to this story. Yemar Bar Chashu lent money to a particular guy. Shachiv. Suppose it's a great story. So what happens? The guy, we'll just call him Ruvain, right? The borrower Ruvain died, and he did not pay back Yemar. What happened? Shavik Arba. He left behind the boat. Left behind the boat. We'll say, not a yacht. We're going to see in just a moment. It was just a boat. So Yemar said to Shaliach, Zil Tafsa Heli, go, grab the boat in satisfaction of the debt. Azal Tafsa, so the Shliach went to grab the boat, right, to acquire the boat for Yemar. So Pagu Be Rapapa Rafuna Be Yeshua, Amr led, so Rapapa and Rafuna met the Shaliach, and they said, Ta'at Tofis Labachol B'makom Shechav La'cherib. The Rebbe said, it's actually fascinating. There's a concept like this, of going ahead and seizing property to satisfy a debt when that disadvantages other creditors. Right? So the Gemara said, Rabbi Yochanan, Hatofis Labachol Makom Shechav La'cherim Tap of Pehei Lo Kana. So we'll say the halacha is actually very interesting. So we'll say let's say Ruvain, Shimon, and Levi are all creditors, and now let's say they all lent the same guy money. Guy dies, and let's say again, no yarshim, no nothing. So now they want to seize their debt. So I'll say there's a concept that you can't send a shaliach to go ahead and collect a debt when that collection is going to put another creditor at a disadvantage. In other words, you could do it yourself, but you cannot send a shaliach to do that. Again, the mechanics of that reason, I'm not going to get into that right now. But Lamaisa, so Rav Papa and Rav Huna see the shaliach of Yemar seizing the boat in satisfaction of Yemar's debt, or the debt to Yemar. Rav Papa and Rav Huna says, there are other creditors. And when there are other creditors, a shaliach cannot seize assets in satisfaction of the debt because he's putting the other creditors at a disadvantage. So I'll say, so what happened? So fine, so the shaliach said, okay, Rav Papa and Rav Huna said, I can't seize it. So we'll say, turns out, by the way, who were the other creditors? Rav Papa and Rav Huna. So what happens? Tafsua inhu. So we'll say, Rav Papa and Rav Huna grabbed the boat. So listen to this. Rav Papa mimlach maluchi. Rav Papa got in and started rowing it. Rav Huna b'Rav Yeshua mamtach le ba'ashla. So Rav say Rav Huna b'Rav Yeshua was pulling it with a rope. So we'll say there must have been quite a scene, right? So Rav Papa is trying to paddle, Rav Huna is trying to pull it, and they're doing it at the same time, right? They're both trying. Now we'll say, now remember again, they both have a right as creditors to acquire the property, and they're both doing a kinyan. They're trying to do a ma'aseh kinyan. So Mar Amar Ana Kanina Leilakula. So Rav says, so Rav Papa is saying, I'm acquiring the whole thing. I'm paddling it. I'm rowing it. Omar Amar Ana Kanina Leilakula. And Rav Huna said, what are you talking about? I'm pulling it. I'm acquiring it. So Pagabura Pinchas Barami. So they bumped into Rav Pinchas Barami. What happened? Amar Lahu Rav Shalom Tarvayu. So both say, Rav Pinchas Barami says, guys, you don't have, neither of you have a right to this boat, because remember we paskin like Rabbi Akiva. Namely, what happens when a person dies? What happens when a person dies? Ultimately, the property becomes the possession of the estate of the Yisomim, and no creditor has a right to go ahead and take it. Right? So halacha l'maisa, neither of you have a right to this boat. The only time maybe there's a right is if the item in question is in the public domain. Maybe then you have a right. And here this boat is not. Amar lahu ananami mecharifusa denara tafisna. They said, no. We seized it ultimately, again, literally from the turbulent part of the river. In other words, it wasn't parked on the bank of the river, but rather ultimately, again, it was in the more turbulent part of the river, the middle of the river, which ultimately, again, is like Rishus Harabim. Incredible. So Asalu Kamei Rava. So they came before Rava. Amar Lahu, Rava said to them, Kakoi Chiyuri Mishalchi Glimi Di Inshi. The white geese are trying to take the clothing of people. The white geese, Rabbi says, is a reference to Rav Papa and Rafuna, because they were older. Trying to take the clothing of people was a reference to the fact that they're trying to claim these assets, this boat, in satisfaction of their debt. So the Gemara says, Hachi Amrav Nachman Vahu Shetavso Mechayim. Because, by the way, you can't seize any assets of the deceased, right? The only time that a creditor could seize assets is halacha l'maaseh if they seize it during the lifetime of the creditor. But after he dies, everything automatically becomes the property of who? The yarshim, and no creditor has a right to seize it. So Rabbi says, so what do you begin to see? Once again, another story that seems to point us in the direction that we paskin like Rabbi Akiva, namely that after the death of Reuven, his entire estate becomes the property of the Yisomim, and no creditor has a right to seize it after his death. Again, let's say, just to be clear, do creditors have rights in the estate of the deceased? The answer is, of course, but there's a mechanism for collection. What's the mechanism? You go to Beis Din, right? What can't you do? You can't seize assets. Contrast that with being a creditor during the lifetime of the debtor. Then I will say there are certain circumstances where if assets present themselves, you can seize them in satisfaction of the debt. Good. Avimi breid Rabbi Avo havamaski bezuzi bechozai. But a fascinating case. Listen to this. Avimi owed money to some people in Bechozai. He owed money. So we'll say, so what happened? Shadrinu biyad chama berei duraba baravua. So we'll say he sent the money, he sent repayment. So there was, in this case over here, Avimi owes the money. He sent the repayment in the hands of Chama. So he sends money with Chama. So what happens? Azal parenu, Chama went and paid back the debt. So Amarle havuli shtara. So Chama Bar said, okay, I paid back the debt. Now return the loan document. Remember again, when you loan someone money, so lender, bless you, lender holds the document, and upon repayment of the debt, document is given to the borrower. That effectively becomes his receipt that he's gone ahead and paid back the debt. So now what happens? Chama repays the money, and Chama says, okay, give me back the document. Amrulay, so the people of Bechozai said to him, Sitraininu, no. Avimi owed us 2 loans. He borrowed 2 amounts of money. What you just paid back was the other loan, not the one recorded in the document, and therefore, again, they would not record the document. They would not return the document. So, now what's the problem? So now, Chama returns back to Avimi. He paid back the money. He doesn't have the document. So now, essentially what? Avimi still owes Bechozai the loan recorded in the document. As one could imagine, Avimi was not very happy. First of all, you could imagine Avimi says, number one, there's no second loan. And you shaliach, you put me at a terrible disadvantage. So he came for Rabbi Avo. Amrlei, islach sahadi de parasinu. So Rabbi Avo said, tell me, shaliach chama, do you have witnesses that you repaid the debt? Amrlei lo. So to which Chama responded, no, I just repaid it privately. So Amrlei, migi di'cholin lomar lo hayu dvar me'olam, yicholin nami lememar sitraininu. Here's the problem. So the people of Bechozai, they have a migo. What's their migo? They could deny the transaction ever occurred. Right? They could just say nothing ever happened. So the fact that they could deny the entire transaction because there's no witnesses, they are believed to say that the money you gave them is in payment of a different debt. So we'll say, so therefore, again, the people of Bechozai are believed. Now, what's the shayla? Le'inyan shalume shliach. I both say this is a fascinating discussion. Is there shaliach responsibility? Right? So now the shaliach, Chama, did not properly execute his agency. So is there shaliach liability now? In other words, we both say, would we make the shaliach repay Chama? Would we make Chama repay Avimi or not? Rashi. So Rashi is like this. Chazinon, we look at the following. If ultimately, again, he says, so say, it depends on the instructions that Avimi gave to Chama. If Avimi explicitly said, listen, get the document back and then pay the money, then ultimately, again, mishalim. Then the shaliach would be responsible because the shaliach did not comply with the instructions of the agency. But ultimately, again, have zuzi v'shakal shtara. But if Avimi first said, pay the money and then get the shtar, then ultimately lo mishalim. So what's essentially the Gemara says like this: we look at the instructions that the mishaleach, that Avimi, right, that Avimi gave to his shaliach Chama. If Avimi explicitly said, get the document back first before you pay the money, then the shaliach is in violation of the instructions. If you violate the instructions, then you're chayiv for any level of damages that occur. If, however, he didn't give him those instructions, then halacha l'maaseh wouldn't be liable. V'lo, the Gemara says, in fact, this is not true. This is incredible. Look at the conclusion. Benkach ubenkach mishalim. Either way, halacha l'maaseh the shaliach Chama. No, thank you so much. Thank you. Either way, Chama has to go ahead and pay back the debt. Why does he have to go back and pay the debt? Because Avimi can say to him, I sent you to help me, not to damage me. Right? I sent you to help me and not to damage you. So both say, this is actually an incredible halacha, and this is how the Rambam paskins halacha l'maisa. So both say, Shlichus 101. Shlichus 101 is you never repay a debt without what? Without getting the document, right? Or in other words, at least seeing that document, or some arranging for that. In other words, because we'll say, repaying a debt without going ahead and having the document in hand is opening yourself up to exactly this kind of case. So therefore, Rabbi the Gemara says like this, Rav Ashi says like this, that at the end of the day, halacha l'maaseh the shaliach, in this case, is going to be chayiv to pay back the money to the mishaleach, to the, what do we call the agent and the principal, right? The principal, he's going to be obligated. Why? Because the principal can say, what are you doing? I sent you to help me out, not to put me at a disadvantage. You were derelict in your responsibility. You did not properly execute your shlichus, and therefore, again, there is liability for the shaliach in this case. An incredible, incredible case. Let's say, let's go weiter. Okay, well, so here we go. Interesting case. Hahi isisa, davo mifkedi gaba meluga l'shtari. So let's listen to this. There was a woman with whom Ruvain deposited a bag of loan documents. Right? In other words, Ruvain was a creditor to a lot of people. A lot of people owed Ruvain money, and he had a bag of loan documents owed to him. So he deposited this money, this bag of documents with a particular woman. So what happened? Ruvain died. Asu Yarshim Katav Lemina. So the Yarshim came to get their father, to get the bag of loan documents from the woman. So what happens? So the Gemara says, Amr Lahu, she said to them, Mechayim Tafisna Lahu, your father owed me money, and I seized this bag of loan documents in satisfaction of the debt that he owed me while he was still alive. Smart lady, right? So there's no seizure after death. So she claims while he was alive, I seized this bag of loan documents from him. So therefore I'm not giving it back to you. So they come to Beis Din. They come to Rav Nachman, Amar Law, Islach Sahadi, did Tavua Minach Mechai Velo Yavin Nehela. So Rav Nachman says to the woman, tell me, do you have witnesses that Reuven came back to try to get his bag of loan documents and you refused to give it to him because you seized it in satisfaction of the debt while he was still alive? Do you have witnesses to that? So Amar Law, she said no. Im came havitvisa de la akramisa utfika de la akramisa lav kumus. So what essentially Rav Nachman was saying is, if you can't prove that you seized this during the lifetime of Ruvain, then we have to assume that this is a post-death seizure. And Rabbi say, what is the halach of a post-death seizure? Illegal, because all the property goes to the Yisomim like Rabbi Akiva, and therefore such a seizure is insignificant. Another story. We'll say now, only because we just spoke about a story with a woman, we're bringing down another story with a woman. There was a particular woman who was chayv shvua. We'll say whatever the reason, she was obligated to take an oath in Beis Din. Listen to this story. What happened? So in the Beis Din of Rava, Amr le bas Rav Chisda, the daughter of Rav Chisda said to Rava, Rabbi said, who's the daughter of Rav Chisda? The daughter of Rav Chisda was Rava's wife. So Rava's wife says to him, Amr le bas Rav Chisda, Yadana ba de chashud ashua. I know this lady, and she lies through her teeth, right? So don't let, essentially what she was saying to her husband is, don't let this lady take a shvuah, because she will swear falsely in Beis Din. So we'll say, there's a fascinating concept in the halachos of shvuah of an oath, called you could flip an oath. What does it mean to flip an oath? Let's say you have two people come to Beis Din, Reuven and Shimon. and Reuven's obligated to take an oath, but we know Reuven is a dishonest person. So Reuven will lie under oath. What do you do when you know that one of the litigants potentially could lie under oath? You flip the oath to the other party. We'll see that in Shua, such a concept like that. So therefore, again, Rava flipped the oath in this case. Good. Zimnin haviyasi kami drapaba v'Rav Adbar Masna. One time, right, it happened in front of Rav Adbar Masna. Aisyahu shtara gabe. Ultimately, again, someone brought the particular document. So, right, Reuven brought a document that said that Shimon owed him money. So let's now watch this. This is fascinating. So the Gemara said, Rav Papa said, Yedana be dishtara periyahu. I happen to know that this document is already paid up. Right? Reuven is trying to illegally extract money from Shimon. The document was already paid. Amar lei. So listen to this on both sides. So they said to him, Ika ine shachrina bahadei. So I'll say, interestingly enough, ultimately again, interestingly enough, Rava said to him, tell me, do you know, is there someone else who could attest to this with you? In other words, is there another witness that the document is paid up? So Amar leilo, to which Rav Papa said, no, only me. Amar le afagav di ikamar eid echad lav klomu. Even though again, Rav Papa, you're saying it's paid up, lamaisi you're only in eid echad. Amar le Rav Adbar Masna, v'lo yehi Rav Papa kibas Rav Chisda. Is Rav Papa not as strong as the daughter of Rav Chisda? So Rabbi said, the daughter of Rav Chisda said to her husband, Rava, this lady is not believed. And based on that, Rava flipped the shvuah to the other party. So ultimately, again, should Rav Papa not be at least as believable as the daughter of Rav Chisda? So Rabbi said, this is incredible. So the Gemara says, so Rava responded, Bas Rav Chisda kimli begava, marlu kimli begave. I know the daughter of Rav Chisda. I don't know you. There's a say, so at the end of the day, the ability to go ahead and believe the testimony of an individual is fundamentally based on how well you know that individual. So you're saying, I know the daughter of Chisda, I don't know you. Amra Papa, Hasha da Amar Mar Kimli Begave Milsa. Now that we know about say that knowing someone adds a level of veracity to their testimony, so ultimately he going Abba Mari di Kimli Begave Karana Shtara Apume. Someone like Abba Mari, if you were to tell me that a shtar is an invalid shtar, I would tear it up based on his testimony. So Karana, really, you would tear up a shtar? Both tearing up a shtar is a pretty significant thing. Ella, merana shtara apume. Doesn't mean tear it up, or rather what? I would weaken it. We'll say, meaning that if someone like Abba Mar, ultimately again, would go ahead and say that such a shtar has been paid, I would take his words seriously, and we'll look at the shtar a bit more critically. Okay, so there's a particular woman who was obligated in a shvuah in the Beis Din of Rabbi Bar Abai. Amar lehu, hahu baldin tisi v'tishtaba b'masa after the michsefa umodi. Shabbos, listen to this. So now this woman, we'll call her Rachel, was obligated to take a shvuah to Reuven. Reuven says, I'm telling you, she's going to lie under oath. So there's only one way to ensure he's not going to lie. Let's move the case back to our hometown. Reuven and Rachel came from the same place. Let's move the case, change the venue. Let's move the case to our hometown, because if she has to take a shvuah in front of her own landsmen, in front of her own townspeople, she'll be more reticent to lie. So change the venue, change it to her hometown. That's the only way you could ensure that she's going to swear truthfully. So what happens? This is incredible. So the woman, so Rachel says, okay, that's fine. I'll agree to a change of venue. I'll swear my hometown, but on one condition. Kisfuli zechusa. First white line above on the bottom. Here's my condition. Write for me a document that exonerates me. I'm going to take shul in my hometown. I want you to write the document now. Write it now, so that, because what was she concerned about? I'm going to go to my hometown, change the venue. I'm going to swear. The ruling is the judge is going to rule in my favor. And then what? I'm going to have to come back to you guys to get a document certifying the judgment in my favor. So I'll agree to the change of venue, but I essentially want you to write the document that says, I've been exonerated. Write it now. You don't have to sign it now. You're right, you can sign it later. But I want you to write it now. That way I could be done with this as soon as I go ahead and take the oath in my hometown. Okay? Amur Rabbi Bar Abai, Kisula. Rabbi Abai said, fine, write it for her. And I was about to say, we're not going to sign it now. We're not going to sign it loud. But Lamaisa, again, write it now. So the Gemara says, listen to this. So Rabbi Abai said, fine. Amur Rabbi said, Mishum da'asis because you come from truncated people, you say truncated things. And it was Rabbi Bar Abaye, Rashi points out, was a descendant of Eli HaKohen. There was a curse upon the house of Eli that all the male members, all the men of the house of Eli would die young. This was a result, ultimately, again, of the egregious behavior of Chafni and Pinchas, the sons of Eli, and Eli's failure to rebuke them. So there was a curse upon the house of Eli. So they called the people of Eli truncated people, Mimulai. So because you come from a truncated home, you say truncated stuff. So the Gemara says, Ha'amarava, Hayasharta Dedani Demichtava Mikamei Dinachvu Sa'adia Chasimo Sadayu, Psula, Ama Michsi Kashikra, Hachana Michsi Kashikra. Remember again, I will say from our Yavamis days, Asharta Dedaini, right? When you have a star and you have a witnesses sign on the star, and what? We don't know the witnesses. So I will say there's a concept of Kiyum Shtaras, right? Kiyum Shtaras means other witnesses come, and what? They don't testify about what it says in the star. What do they testify about? The signatures of the witnesses that they're legitimate. So the Gemara says, you can't proactively go ahead and draw up Asharta Dedaini, right? And then when the witnesses come, you can't do that. In other words, I will say there's a concept of mechse keshikra. Something looks false. Proactively drafting legal documents that attest to legal realities, which have not yet occurred, looks like shikra. It looks like falsehood. So I will say, this is incredibly important. In other words, I just want to point out over here, all we're trying to do is save a little bit of time. So what am I doing? I'm drawing up a legal document that attests to a reality that has not yet occurred. I'm not signing it yet, but I'm drawing it up. The Gemara says, you can't do that. You can't do that because mechse keshikra, it looks like sense. It's not sheker, it's not actual falsehood because you haven't signed it, but it's mechse keshikra, it looks fundamentally false. So the Gemara says, Velesa. What about Midrab Nachman? Omer Remer afilu matzah ba'ashra v'chasmo v'nosnu la kasher. I Rabbi say, what about the Gemara of Nachman who says that by a get, let's say Rabbi say Reuven is married to Rachel. Reuven goes ahead and finds a get in the garbage that was written by a guy by the name of Reuven to Rachel, right? And he finds a get, and Reuven says, oh, it's a simon. It's a simon, right? I've been on the fence for a long time about this marriage. Now it's a simon. I found the get in the garbage. Hashem wants me to divorce my wife. So he just wants to go ahead and use the get. And then he signs on the get, even sign the get. It's kosher. Then I both say, now that's interesting because again, a get requires lishma. But you see over here that again, he's using a get that's been written by someone else. So even the Rabbanan only disagree in this case by a get, because a get requires lishma. Aval b'shar shtaras modile, but again by other shtaras, ultimately again, everyone would agree that you could use a shtar which was proactively drafted. So the Gemara says, "The Amravasi Amrav Yochanan shtar shalavabo uparo eino chozer v'lovabo shekvar nimchal shibudo." You will say if a loan document that was already used and repaid, you can't use it again for a transaction. Why? Because the lien was already voided. Taima de nimchal shibudo. The reason you can't reuse a loan document is because the lien was already voided. But again, in terms of the appearance of falsehood, lo chayshina. And apparently, again, we're not so concerned about. So I will say, so it turns out, the Gemara seems to indicate over here, that we're not concerned for mechse keshikra, right? We're not concerned ultimately that the proactive drafting of legal documents has the appearance of falsehood. As long as, of course, what? As long as what? As long as what? As long as you're not signing it. In other words, so see what the Gemara is saying over here is, if to save time, you want to proactively draft documents, not sign them, just draft them, that would be permitted. It doesn't look like shikra. Now, both say, whether or not it's a good idea is a different discussion, right? It sounds like a very bad idea, but Lamaisa, again, you can understand in a case like this where we're asking the woman to agree to a change of venue, and she's saying, I'll agree to the change of venue, but I don't want to have to come back here, wherever here is, for the certification of the judgment. So certify the judgment now. Don't sign it, but have it ready to go so that as soon as I swear I'm good to go, the Gemara seems to indicate actually would be an acceptable solution. Weiter. Ho Gavra. Now a lot of stories today. Great stories. Both say this is a great one. Ho Gavra. Ta'af Kishev Margani said that Sari Besadina Beirab Miasha. Barbarid Rabbi Yoshua Ben Levi. You're supposed to listen to this. There was a guy who deposited seven pearls wrapped up in a sardina, in a cloth, in the house of Rabbi Miasha. Rabbi Miasha bar Rabbi Yeshua, who was the grandson of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So let's say, now watch this. Shachav Rabbi Miasha v'lo pakid. Here's what's fascinating about this. Rabbi Miasha ultimately again died, and he did not leave instructions to his family. So here's the issue. Rabbi Miasha dies. These pearls are in his possession. The family doesn't know what? What's the story with those pearls? Do they belong to Rabbi Miasha? Not belong to Rabbi Miasha? So I'll just point out, by the way, what a profound statement of Shachav Rabbi Miasha v'lo pakid. Rabbi Miasha died, and he did not leave instructions to his household. I will say, the Chazal tell us that Yaakov Avinu davened for sickness. Before Yaakov Avinu, the Gemara says, people just died. They were alive one moment, they died. Yaakov Avinu davened for sickness. Why? So that a person should know that the end was near, and that way a person would be able to get their affairs in order. Right? Yaakov Avinu said a person has to, and it's not just monetary affairs, that in life, we'll say for whatever the reason, sometimes there are things that we want to tell our loved ones that we never get around to saying, right? Or there are things we want to do in life that we don't get around to doing. And so halacha l'maisa, illness reminds a person that the end is near, and they take care of the things they need to take care of. That was what Yaakov Avinu davened for. And it's an amazing, amazing thing how an entire lifetime could go by, and I haven't done the things I need to do, said the things I need to say. So let's say, obviously the goal in life is not to wait till your deathbed to say what you need to say to your family members. And the goal in life is not to wait until your deathbed to do the things in life you need to do. But sometimes, no matter how much you try to accomplish in life, there are things that when you die are left unresolved. Halavai should just be financial things and not anything more dramatic. So Rabbi Miasha dies, no one knows what the story of the pearls were. So I was looking at Rabbi Yami, Amarle, so they came before Rabbi Yami. They said, what should we do? So this is incredible. Amarle, Chada diadana beit Rabbi Miasha bar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, delo amid. First of all, he said, I know Rabbi Miasha, he was not wealthy. So because he was not wealthy, chances are those pearls are not his. Those pearls are not his. Va'od hakayov simna. Furthermore, again, I'm sorry, there's one more piece over here. After Rabbi Miasha died, a guy came and said, those are my pearls. Those are my pearls. So furthermore, the guy who came gave a siman about the pearls. And again, obviously the giving of a siman would seem to indicate that what? That they were truly his. But the giving of a siman only works when only if it was a person who was not commonly in Rabbi Miasha's house. But if it was someone who was in Rabbi Miasha's house, maybe the pearls belonged to someone else, and the reason this guy was able to give a siman was why? Why? Because he was always present in the house. Incredible. So we'll say very interesting case. Another story. There was a story of a guy, someone who deposited a silver cup in the house of Chasa. Shachiv Chasa v'lo pakid. Chasa died, and ultimately he did not leave any instructions regarding the silver cup. So we'll say a guy shows up and says the silver cup is mine. Also coming to Rav Nachman, so they come to Beth. Now the Yarshim, right, the children of Chasa don't know what to do. So the children say, we don't know. The guy, Ruven, is showing up and saying, that's my silver cup. They come before Rav Nachman. Amarle, so Rav Nachman said, Yadana be Chasa de lo amid. I knew Chasa was not a wealthy man, and therefore he would not have possessed such a silver cup. Va'od ha kiyav simana. Furthermore, again, the guy who's showing up is giving a siman about the cup. V'lo amar, and the siman is only meaningful when ela de lo ragil da'ayal benafik lahasam. If there wasn't a guy who was in and out of Chasa's house. But if it was a guy who's in and out of Chasa's house, it's possible again that in fact the cup belonged to someone else, and this guy just happened to see it and knew the siman because he was in and out of the house. So we have to stop over here for today. More incredible Gemara. I will say, Shkoyach.